Well, the Denver Broncos didn't have to pay Bradley Chubb, but Bradley Chubb got paid today. It is Orange and Blue today. It is Cecil Lammey. It is Andrew Mason here to talk about your Denver Broncos and George Paton making that move for to get rid of Bradley Chubb, to trade him away, Mace. We see the Miami Dolphins pay him handsomely today.
Yeah, it only takes one team to say yes, right? That one team wasn't the Denver Broncos. And when you look at the terms of this deal, you can't blame the Broncos for not saying yes. I mean, it's a contract. Forget about just edge rushers. It just puts them, depending on what metric you use, top 10, top 5 of all defensive players league wide. And with all respect to Bradley Chubb, that's not the level that he's at least what he's shown over the last 5+ years.
Right. It's not where he's at, and the Broncos can't afford him, and they got to pay Draymond Jones anyway. So that's conversation there. But congratulations to Bradley Chubb, who always approached things in a professional manner, always, insisting how much he appreciates the Denver Broncos. And I believe him. I don't think it's just, lip service or player speak or whatever you want to say, Mace. You and I have been around Bradley Chubb enough to know that he's a good pro. He's the type of guy you want in your locker room.
Exactly. And he had nothing but kind words to say about the Broncos today. In fact, actually came back at the end of his press conference, came back to express his fond feelings and thankfulness for the people he came across in Denver. And you knew you'd get nothing but glass. And I don't begrudge him for taking it. You and I feel the same way about this. We don't ever begrudge any of these guys for taking the money, for getting the bag while you can. You're putting your life on the line literally every play that you're out there. And, take what you can get, maximize what you can get right now. I don't blame him, but I also don't blame the Broncos for looking at these types of numbers, if indeed these were the numbers that the Chubb camp wanted, and saying, that's not something that really works in our short and long range planning. You mentioned Draymond Jones, but also, I mean, it comes pretty quickly that you're going to have to pay Pat Surtain. And with all respect to Bradley Chubb, I think Pat Surtain's probably on a higher level, higher caliber of player than Bradley Chubb is at this point.
Right. And so the Broncos, you got to get used to it. And the moves that you do are not for just this year, because I know a lot of people were saying, and I don't want to misquote anyone, but I ran across people on Twitter calling out D-Mac because he didn't like the Chubb deal because it sends the wrong message to the fans. Fans, you'll be fine, because it's the long-term health of this team that matters. And that's why a GM isn't so myopic on the 9 games. I'm not saying the D-Mac was either. I just, fans can say anything about anyone, but I just was like, yeah, I don't really care about the rest of these 9 games. The long-term future health of this team is where George Paton's focused at.
Right. And again, I mean, I think if you're making this type of deal next year, I think there's a real problem that needs to be confronted about where this franchise is going from a football perspective. But really, this one, okay, it's understandable. And look, nature abhors a vacuum. Somebody's going to step up and rush the passer ring. You know what? Somebody's going to get those sacks. It'll be interesting to see, Cecil, when we look at the end of the season. Let's take a look at where this team ranks in pressure rate and sack rate. We know about the numbers about pass rush win percentage, and it was and frankly, the win percentage as calculated by Pro Football Focus, very favorable to Baron Browning, Randy Gregory, Nick Bonito compared to Bradley Chubb.
Right.
So there's that. And let's see where some of the other metrics end up at the end of the season. Now, if we're looking at a scenario where the Broncos' overall pressure rate, overall QB hit rate, overall sack rate didn't drop, then I think we'll know, all right, this was the right move to trust the guys that they had in that room waiting to take over.
Yeah, now you mentioned Pat Surtain and the future of paying him, and that'll happen eventually. We talk about Draymond Jones, who needs to be paid, this year, next year, as soon as possible, what have you. The one player that we don't really talk about is Dalton Reisner, a friend of yours and mine, and someone I don't think is going to stay with the Broncos.
Yeah, and it's tough to see, because I look back at Dalton, and the first half of his rookie season, I really did think we were looking at a 10-year guard. He hasn't been quite the same since he had that high ankle sprain as a rookie. I'm not saying it's affecting him, but that was the point at which the straight incline that he was on seemed to deviate a little bit. And then on top of everything else, you change offensive schemes to Pat Shurmur in 2020. You change again this year. I don't think he's been done any favors by the schematic changes as well. You're actually getting this year back to what the Broncos drafted him for back in 2019, but he's been just okay, and at times he's been a weak link in pass pro.
Yeah, at times he's that guy that going to Russell Wilson like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So if you look at who's going to get paid, and if you look at this offensive line, if we like fast forward to next year, if we put our George Payton hat on, although I don't know what a George Payton hat would look like. Probably not a beanie like me, or who's on your hat? Some sort of Charlotte team? Who's on your hat?
That is the Colorado Springs Switchbacks of the USL Championship soccer team. But if you've got George Payton, he's got some flow, he's got some hair. You know what? Why would you wear a hat if you're George Payton?
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to wear a hat if you're George Payton. So we'll put on our George Payton toupee, right? And have those flowing locks. And I just look and I go, okay, you've got 5 questions on your offensive line next year. And it's 5. It's not 4. Don't think that Garrett Bowles isn't a question, because he is. Even if Garrett Bowles is healthy, he's still a question. And as an older player anyway, and older when you drafted him, this is a problem he ran into, and he's never going to play right tackle. You have your eternal right tackle question. Sure, you got a first rounder. That could be the right tackle. Fine. Still kind of a question. It's a rookie. You've got questions on the guard spot, especially if you don't keep Dalton Rising. You've got questions at center. And hell, Mace, you and I know zone blocking system. And have they been running zone blocking system? Not exclusively. They're running some gap stuff with Latavius Murray out there. So it's kind of weird how, and by the way, when Graham Glasgow's in and they run gap stuff, it looks pretty good. He's not a zone guy. So it's like, well, what are you? And the Broncos haven't yet figured that out.
Remember when this was supposed to be outside zone? I mean, how much outside zone have we really seen so far this year? I mean, this is not what we were sold. This is not what we were advertised here. And you're right. Latavius is better when you're running gap than outside zone. I mean, that's why you get in the next off season. Who's the coach? And this is not just who's the O-line coach. Who's the offensive coach? Who's guiding this team? I mean, it's hard to project. We really don't know. Frankly, Cecil, the only guy of the current 5 that I feel confident is going to be starting next year is Quinn Miners over at right guard. Certainly left tackle. You're hoping to get Garrett Bowles back. But that injury, fractured ankle, we know it can affect guys. We know that, especially offensive linemen who are in the neighborhood of the age of 30. So,
and a guy known for his athleticism.
Yes. I mean, Chris Cooper was never the same. Graham Glasgow really isn't the same, even though I thought he played well on Sunday in Jacksonville. Perhaps that's one way to get the most out of Graham Glasgow, is to have him at center rather than guard. And maybe that's the way to maximize what he can be going forward, because the quickness, the balance that he had when he was out there earlier this year for Quinn Miners was well off compared to what it had been before the injury, I thought.
Right. So we got a lot of questions with the Denver Broncos for next year, and hell, even questions coming out of the bye as the Broncos are on. And Mace, you'll be on assignment tomorrow, so I have to pick your brain today in terms of what's going to look different coming out of the bye. And in the chat room, I think it's Alessandro here who says, who would you have as the second back? Well, I'd have Latavius as the first, and the second would be Chase Edmonds. That's just me. We'll see. And Marlon Mack making the trip for a reason, to get that young man up to speed. And he's a good player. So doing a show with Orlando last night, he's like, I don't know if Melvin Gordon makes it out of the bye. Like when Randy Gregory comes back, you got to cut someone. If you've got Mack and Edmonds and Murray, you don't need Gordon. Plus the no special teams thing. Like, I don't know. It's kind of the hot button issue, right?
Well, it's interesting. George Payton was talking about Melvin Gordon still being the starter when he addressed media earlier this week. If Melvin Gordon's not starting, then or isn't at least the number 2, there's not room for him. You mentioned the special teams thing, right? Because the third running back has to pitch in on teams. I mean, that's why Mike Boone was such an ideal third back before he was injured, because he's going to play multiple phases of special teams. He was perfect there. So, yeah, honest. I mean, this is tough because you didn't trade for Chase Edmonds to sit him on the bench. Chase is going to play.
Right.
And or as any parent of a toddler would know, Chase is going to be on the case, to make a Paw Patrol reference. So,
yeah, Paw Patrol.
oh yeah, we get
my
we get
kids are older, so they were more like
Yeah.
Backyardigans and Bob the
Yeah.
Builder.
Yeah, my kid, she was right there in the Paw Patrol wheelhouse a few years ago when she was a toddler, and it sticks in your head, you know. So anyway, Chase is going to be on the case. Chase is going to get some run. He's going to get some reps. And like you said, Marlon Mack didn't make the trip to London without some good reason. I mean, they're basically setting themselves up to where if they don't want to play Melvin Gordon, they don't have to. Now, the other interesting thing also in terms of roster construction is they've been able to squeeze all 4 of these guys on the 53. So it almost feels like they're just going to go week to week. And it almost, to me, feels like, Cecil, they're waiting for Melvin Gordon to fumble one more time. And it's like, okay, if you fumble one more, that's it. You're not going to play again.
Isn't that odd if that's what they're doing? And I'm not disagreeing with you, Mace, that that's what they could be doing. But like, if that's all you're waiting for, just cut him now. Just cut him now.
Yeah,
Mack is a starter.
Yes.
He's a good back. Edmonds is a starter. He's a good back. Latavius is a starter. He's a good back. Like, you're not hurting at running back if you could just cut Melvin Gordon. If you truly are just waiting for him to fumble one more time, this is probably going to happen.
These are all good backs, but at the same time, I mean, Melvin Gordon's year 8. Latavius is what? He's year 9 or 10, I believe. Was he 2014 was his rookie season, I think?
It was the last Texas versus the Nation game, so that's
okay.
My brain eludes me on what year that was, but it's been a while.
So Melvin Gordon year 8. I think Latavius is year 9. Marlon Mack is, I believe, year 5, but that's an injury-strewn year 5 because he hasn't
Achilles
been,
injury, right?
Yeah, he hasn't been the same since then. Chase Edmonds, even he doesn't have the history of injuries, but he too is a year 5 guy. I mean, none of these guys are fresh-legged, as it were. They're all, probably all of these guys are closer to the end of their lives in the NFL as running backs than they are at the beginning. Even Chase Edmonds, they're in the 5th year, unless he stays healthy. And I think with Chase Edmonds, the goal for him is to kind of find that perfect niche in an offense. Maybe he finds that here in Denver. Not your every down guy, but very much your third down guy. He talked about it with Phil Milani over on the Broncos digital and social channels yesterday. He sees himself basically as a back who's involved in the passing game, both as a target and also in pass pro. And so that lends itself actually to being able to kind of fit that role, which is great. Every team needs that guy, but where are you getting the rest of it from? And I really think maybe it might come down to just hanging on to Marlon Mack and Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon, and just, all right, whoever are the 2 best any given week, they're going to be the guys that get the jerseys on Sundays. I mean, it's basically treating every week of practice like it's a Thunderdome, except instead of 3 men enter, 2 men, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. It's going to be 3 men enter, 2 men leave. Another one is sitting there in sweats on Sunday, and the only guy that is definitely going to be out there is Chase Edmonds.
I went down a Mad Max Fury Road wormhole the other day because the Furiosa prequel is going to come out in like 2025. So as a spec person for comic books, as there's a zillion comic books behind me, like I'm snatching up Furiosa first appearances, which is Mad Max Fury Road #1. So don't get me started on Thunderdome, Tina Turner, and Road Warrior. It's almost turned into Road Warrior out there. So the Broncos, the Interceptor, the damn Mad Max car, Mace, if I may interject, because I'm a car guy. Go ahead. The Interceptor is only an Australian car. It was never made. It kind of looks like the Torino in America, but I was like, damn it, that's a beautiful car. and it's only made in Australia. So,
I mean, it stands to reason, right? I mean,
yeah.
makes sense. I mean, the funny thing is, before you said that, I was going to say the Broncos need another hero at running back. They need to find a way home. All they want is beyond Thunderdome.
There you
Oh,
go.
I can't do a good Tina Turner. No one can, but Tina
no one
Turner.
can. Yeah. Rolling down the river. That is the
Yes.
Broncos. And our guy Nate chimes in and says Dulcich should be doing big things, including hair commercials. And I'm telling you, come out of the bye, more
Yeah.
KJ, more Dulcich. Period. Point blank. And I don't even care how they run the ball as long as they run the ball. But I'll tell you this, there better be more Hamler. There better be more Dulcich.
Yeah, I think there will be too. And I think the other guy I'd throw in there, I think there'll be some more Jerry Jeudy as well, because he's gotten hot here the last few weeks. I wonder what Cortland Sutton, his role is going to be. The interesting thing on Sutton, his blocking work has not been great this year.
No.
There's not a lot that Cortland Sutton's done well in the last month. It's curious. It's very surprising. That there are a lot of things that have surprised me about this team. Most of them aren't good, and one of them is Cortland Sutton being basically being a non-factor now for 4 weeks in every way.
I don't want to guess, because it's a guess and no inside information whatsoever. But what this sounds like, and you and I have watched enough football over the years, like, okay, season's over, and then all of a sudden there's a report like, hey, Cortland Sutton's getting a scope, he's getting a little cleanup surgery on that knee. And you're like, huh? So I mean, Sutton's better than this. Sutton is better than what he's showing. So either his game has fallen off, which I don't think that's the case, or he's hurt.
Yeah.
And he's playing through something, a little something, but it's something, and it's enough to keep him. Because the blocking thing, he's always been a good blocker. Yeah. And now he can't block his way out of a wet paper bag.
It's Jerry Jeudy you worry about as a blocker, typically, not Cortland. No. That's been surprising to see, because with Cortland, he's usually a high effort guy when he's involved in the blocking game. So that's been disappointing. He's got to, believe it or not, I'd say he's got to watch KJ Hamler a little bit, because that's the kind of energy, and that's the kind of at least forcefulness in attempt that I want to see from Cortland Sutton that I haven't seen in the blocking game the last couple of weeks.
All right, our guy Jorge chimes in. Do you really believe we got a chance to be in the playoffs? Well, there's always a chance, and they got 3 winnable games coming out of the bye. Although now the Carolina game definitely doesn't look as winnable as it did a month ago.
Doesn't that game look to you like on paper like this? That's going to be like a 16-13 type of slobber knocker game. I mean, it looks like it's going to be a very inelegant contest between two teams with high-powered defenses. And by the way, an interesting thing at the deadline that we were so focused on Bradley Chubb, but you start looking at what other teams did or didn't do, and the reports that Carolina turned down an offer of 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. Well, that I think is shocking to everybody outside of Carolina. What we've learned about Carolina in the last couple of weeks is, they made their big deal with Christian McCaffrey. What they are doing now is they are looking to kind of fortify that defense in terms of getting guys re-signed, getting a long-term contract for Brian Burns. That is like priority number 1.
Right.
By getting the extra draft capital in the CMAC trade, they're looking at having a very high pick. This draft for Carolina is going to be about the offense, starting with the quarterback. Hey, I love what PJ Walker did against the Falcons, but chances are PJ Walker, if he's in Carolina next year, he's a bridge to whoever they pick number 1 overall. This draft is going to be about fortifying that offense and finding some playmakers out there to complement what they think is going to be a pretty lively defense going forward. So that's why it didn't surprise me they traded Brian Burns, and that defense is going to keep them in an awful lot of games going forward.
Yeah, and that's how they've chosen to win going forward, and win with Baker Mayfield as a backup.
Did you see his stash today? He's got the White Goodman thing going on.
Really?
From Dodgeball. He's got the Fu Manchu going today.
No one makes me bleed my own blood.
Yes, except PJ Walker, relegating you to a backup.
Baker and Gardner Minshew, closer than people think.
Yeah, and basically they have the same job title right now, right? They're number twos,
Yeah.
and I don't think Baker's gonna have anything more than a number two for a while here. I mean, I don't think anyone's bringing him in. Carolina's like this graveyard of failed quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. At least Baker got a playoff win. I mean, Sam Darnold did absolutely bupkis, and then he got hurt. You know, actually, one of those guys might be your backup in Denver next year if they look to upgrade the backup quarterback behind Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Who
So you
knows?
got to watch out for that. You never know in the world of the National Football League. Mace, before we're done today, we've got about 5 minutes left. So let's just wrap it up and say, what else are we expecting from the Broncos coming out of the bye? Again, you'll be on assignment tomorrow, so I'll be riding solo. I'll do my brain dump, but I need that final thoughts from you in terms of what will we see that's different or continued going forward for the Denver Broncos.
Okay, I know people are thinking, oh, are they going to make some coaching changes on the offensive side? No, I expect the staff to be status quo, and that'll include Butch Berry, the offensive line coach. I think to kind of follow up on earlier, I do expect you're going to see more effort to get the ball to KJ Hamler and Greg Dulcich. I think those are two guys they're going to involve a little bit more. Much to the consternation of many, I think we saw, I think, what was it, 58 shotgun snaps against the Jaguars last Sunday. Yeah. I think this is going, for all those who are saying under center, including me, I think we're going to be disappointed there. I think we're going to see a lot more shotgun going forward.
Is that just Russ's hammy? Like, what is that?
It's that, like, because he doesn't have to drop. He can he takes a snap, pivots, and throws. It's easier on him. And I don't think you could argue the effectiveness compared to what the offense was previously. You go under center when you're getting short yardage situations. You go shotgun pretty much everything else. It's kind of obvious, but I think that's what we're going to see going forward. Defensively, it's interesting because we're not going to see what this is supposed to look like against Tennessee because we're not going to see Randy Gregory in that game. Expecting to see Baron Browning, but not see Randy Gregory. So that's going to be a little bit more of a work in progress. What I'm fascinated to see, Cecil, is what they do against the run because a lot of these runs are coming outside. They've been at the expense of the edges, including Bradley Chubb, who the Jaguars ran wide of a couple of times last week. So I'm curious to see to see what they do. Do they need to get the safeties kind of coming forward a little bit more to offer some more support? And maybe what happens at inside linebacker as well? That do you maybe look to have packages that have Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton together rather than Jewell Griffith and then Singleton filling in for Jewell when Jewell has been hurt? So I think there may be a little bit of mixing and matching at ILB coming up beyond the bye.
Okay, it is orange and blue today to Cecil Lammey and Andrew Mason. What's your bye week look like, buddy?
Well, like you say, I'm on assignment tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm recuperating from that assignment over the weekend.
Well, on a bye week, like for me, when people ask me, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
No Broncos. I'm like, same thing I always do. Watch football all day.
I will probably be propped up watching on Sunday, just watching the games. It's a good day to have a few TVs, a few screens at your disposal. I'll have a couple of TVs, and I'll have I usually put Red Zone on my tablet.
Right.
So have a couple of TVs up on the wall, Red Zone on the tablet, kind of keep tabs on everything, and then also just try to get some rest. This is this is a good weekend to try to get 8 or 9 hours. I think after my assignment tomorrow, I'll be very much in the mood to have 8 or 9 hours.
I'm telling you, dude, after a new coach, think of all the things that like we didn't get a chance to get because of the Broncos, and no one should feel sorry for us. We cover football for a living, but like, the new coach and the new ownership and blah, blah, blah. And like, so our normal off season where you get like part of July to take off
didn't happen. Oh, this was a completely bonkers off season.
Whirlwind.
Yes. And I think it'll actually be nice to see a little bit more normal. That being said, I don't know. I mean, if they finish 7-10, there's a decent chance we're talking about another coaching search here. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett, and this is going to be kind of the theme of the second half of the season. Nathaniel Hackett isn't out of the woods, A, and B, just because they probably took a slight step back in terms of what they are as a team right now because of the Bradley Chubb trade, does not mean that inside that building they're looking at that as an excuse. The way George Payton sees it, the way Greg Penner sees it, this is still a team that should be getting to the playoffs even without Bradley Chubb based on what they've got elsewhere on the roster. So this trade, I do not believe it's going to be something where we're talking about it being any kind of excuse for Nathaniel Hackett if this team ends up coming in below 500.
Yeah, message to the fans. We can still win without Bradley Chubb. He is Andrew Mason. Follow him at Mace Denver. I am at Cecil Lammey. We are orange and blue today. We appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Mace, enjoy your 3-day weekend. Everyone else, be safe, be kind. Know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned, and I command that you stay frosty.